The silence inside Manhattan's most elite law firm felt almost unbearable. Deep within the marble-covered conference room of Cromwell, Sterling and Associates, a place where billion-dollar agreements were signed and corporate empires were built or destroyed, a $500 an hour Harvard attorney was unknowingly preparing to make the single worst mistake of his professional life. Marcus Wellington III, a third-generation attorney and one of Big Law's celebrated golden boys, sat confidently in a handcrafted Italian leather chair worth thousands of dollars. His expression carried the smug confidence of a man who believed nobody in the room could challenge his intelligence or status. Across from him, displayed on a massive conference screen, sat Judge Judith Scheindlin, calmly waiting after being personally requested by the firm's most important client for a consultation tied to a multi-million-dollar legal dispute. What Wellington didn't realize, what absolutely nobody inside that conference room realized, was that Judge Judy had quietly spent the previous 48 hours investigating him. She had uncovered something buried deep inside his legal history, something powerful enough to destroy everything he had spent years building. A secret so devastating that within only hours of this meeting, it would cost him his position at one of America's most prestigious law firms. Blinded by arrogance, Wellington was preparing to insult and dismiss the one person who possessed the evidence capable of ending his entire career. The next 30 seconds would change his life forever. The comments that left Wellington's mouth would later be recorded, leaked publicly, and remembered as one of the most humiliating legal takedowns in modern history. But nobody could have predicted Judge Judy's response. What she exposed about Wellington's hidden past didn't simply ruin his standing inside the firm. It uncovered a disturbing truth about the American legal system itself. A revelation that sent shockwaves through law schools, courtrooms, and legal conference rooms all across the country. Judge Judy didn't merely defend herself against his disrespect. She systematically dismantled every accomplishment Wellington had ever claimed, using evidence proving he was nothing more than a highly paid fraud hiding behind expensive credentials and family influence. Before diving deeper into the explosive legal confrontation, viewers were encouraged to subscribe and stay tuned for more unbelievable courtroom drama. Because once people discovered what Judge Judy knew about this attorney's darkest secret, it instantly became one of the most talked about legal scandals of the year. This wasn't simply another arrogant lawyer being embarrassed. This became the moment America's legal elite realized their celebrated Harvard golden boy had been living a carefully manufactured lie for years. And the television judge they mocked as entertainment possessed the receipts needed to prove it. By the time Judge Judy finished exposing Marcus Wellington III, unemployment would become the least of his problems. He would soon face questions serious enough to permanently destroy his legal future. To understand how Judge Judy obtained information capable of ending the career of one of Manhattan's most privileged attorneys, you first need to understand why this consultation was happening in the first place, and why it eventually became the most expensive 5 minutes in modern legal history. This wasn't an ordinary legal meeting. It was a collision between two completely different worlds that were never supposed to intersect. On one side stood old money legal privilege, Ivy League arrogance, and corporate power. On the other stood decades of real courtroom experience, instinct, and hard-earned judicial wisdom. The clash between those two worlds was about to expose the rotten foundation hidden beneath some of America's most prestigious law firms. Marcus Wellington III worked at Cromwell, Sterling and Associates, a law firm so exclusive it didn't advertise for clients, didn't compete publicly with rivals, and rarely hired anyone who failed to graduate near the top of an Ivy League law school. Founded in 1892, the firm occupied 17 luxurious floors inside a glass skyscraper overlooking Central Park. The monthly rent for even the smallest office inside the building exceeded what many Americans earned in an entire year. This was the kind of environment where partners drove Bentleys, vacationed in the Hamptons every summer, and viewed a $500 hourly billing rate as modest compensation for their so-called intellectual brilliance. Their clients included Fortune 500 corporations, billionaire families, and even foreign governments willing to spend enormous amounts of money to make sensitive problems disappear quietly. Marcus Wellington represented everything critics hated about elite legal culture in America. He embodied a system where connections mattered more than skill, where family reputation opened doors faster than courtroom victories, and where billable hours carried more value than actual legal talent. At only 35 years old, Wellington had already been fast-tracked toward partnership. But not because of courtroom success. In fact, he had virtually no trial experience at all. His rise came from his bloodline. His grandfather had served as a federal judge. His father was managing partner at another elite corporate law firm, and inside powerful legal circles, that family name carried enormous influence. Marcus Wellington III built his entire legal career around a world that rarely ever entered a courtroom. He specialized in complicated corporate transactions, securities regulations, and private negotiations handled behind expensive conference room doors instead of before judges and juries. The consultation involving Judge Judy had been arranged because of Harrison Industries, a massive family-owned manufacturing empire worth more than $2 billion and one of Cromwell Sterling's oldest clients. For 3 generations, the Harrison family had trusted the firm with every major legal matter, but now the company faced a crisis threatening to destroy both the business and the family controlling it. Richard Harrison, the 78-year-old founder and patriarch of the empire, had become locked in a bitter conflict with his own children. The dispute involved family trusts, succession planning, accusations of financial misconduct, and legal complications serious enough to potentially trigger criminal investigations if handled improperly. The case combined corporate law, estate disputes, family betrayal, and possible federal prosecution into one explosive situation so complicated that even the firm's senior partners felt nervous about their legal strategy. And this is where Judge Judy unexpectedly entered the story. Harrison Industries wasn't simply another wealthy business client. For more than 15 years, Richard Harrison had watched Judge Judy's television program almost every single day. But unlike ordinary viewers who watched for entertainment, Harrison saw something deeper in her courtroom style. He recognized wisdom. He understood that Judge Judy wasn't merely resolving arguments about broken contracts or unpaid loans. She specialized in untangling disputes involving money, ego, betrayal, and family power struggles, exactly the kind of problems tearing his own family apart. Over the years, Harrison watched her expose liars, uncover manipulation, and cut through emotional chaos with remarkable clarity. To him, Judge Judy understood wealthy family dynamics better than most elite corporate attorneys he had hired throughout his life. So when the family conflict reached dangerous levels and millions of dollars were suddenly at risk, Richard Harrison shocked everyone involved by making one unusual demand. He insisted Cromwell Sterling hire Judge Judy as a consultant, not because she was famous, but because he believed she possessed a level of practical legal understanding none of the Ivy League attorneys around him truly had. Harrison had researched her background carefully. He knew that before becoming a television personality, Judge Judy spent 25 years handling extremely complicated family court cases in New York, disputes involving wealthy families, inheritance battles, trusts, business succession, wars, and emotionally toxic conflicts far more difficult than anything Marcus Wellington had ever personally handled. The partners at Cromwell Sterling hated the idea. To them, involving a television judge felt embarrassing and beneath the image of an elite Manhattan law firm, but Harrison Industries generated more than $40 million in annual legal billings for the firm. Losing a client that valuable simply wasn't an option. So despite their discomfort, the consultation was arranged. Marcus Wellington, acting as lead attorney on the case, received responsibility for managing the meeting. His assignment was simple: keep the consultation short, professional, and controlled while minimizing what senior partners privately viewed as an unnecessary publicity stunt. What nobody realized, especially Wellington, was that Judge Judy approached the case exactly the way experienced judges approach every serious legal matter. She investigated everyone involved. Not only the Harrison family, the attorneys too. During the 48 hours leading up to the meeting, Judge Judy researched Marcus Wellington III extensively. And what she uncovered should have destroyed his career years earlier. Her investigation revealed that Wellington had spent years lying about his credentials. The prestigious Harvard Law Review editorship listed proudly on his resume. The achievement forming the foundation of his professional reputation was entirely fabricated. His so-called expertise in securities law existed mostly in theory. Despite his reputation, he lacked meaningful real-world courtroom experience and had never truly demonstrated the legal brilliance people assumed he possessed. But the most damaging discovery involved client billing records. Judge Judy uncovered evidence suggesting Wellington had charged clients enormous fees for work he wasn't properly qualified to perform. In other words, while hiding behind family connections, Ivy League prestige, and expensive suits, Marcus Wellington had potentially been committing large-scale professional fraud for years. The consultation was originally supposed to be simple. Judge Judy would provide practical advice about family conflict. Wellington would showcase his supposed intellectual superiority. Harrison Industries would feel respected. Everyone would leave satisfied. Instead, the meeting was about to become the single most catastrophic mistake of Wellington's career, because he was preparing to insult the one person in America who already possessed evidence capable of destroying everything he built through deception, privilege, and carefully manufactured prestige. The stage was now perfectly set for an explosive confrontation. On one side stood Judge Judy, a television personality with decades of real courtroom experience and a folder filled with devastating evidence. On the other stood Marcus Wellington III, a privileged corporate attorney whose entire reputation rested on family influence, elite credentials, and a carefully protected illusion that was about to collapse publicly. Wellington was moments away from learning a brutal lesson many powerful people eventually discover too late. In law, just like in life, the truth has a dangerous habit of surfacing when you least expect it and when you can least afford it. This wasn't just another consultation anymore. It was becoming a reckoning powerful enough to force America's legal establishment to confront an uncomfortable reality. Some of their most celebrated and expensive attorneys weren't brilliant legal minds at all. They were simply polished frauds protected by status, privilege, and connections. And sometimes it takes an outsider, someone underestimated by the elite, to expose truths everyone else was too intimidated, too invested, or too blinded by prestige to admit. Marcus Wellington III had been born into legal royalty. He grew up in a world where Supreme Court justices attended family parties, where federal judges were personal friends, and where success inside the legal profession felt less like an achievement and more like a guaranteed inheritance. At 35 years old, Wellington appeared to have achieved everything elite American legal education promised its most privileged students: a luxury office in Manhattan's most exclusive firm, a billing rate higher than most judges earned in months, and a reputation describing him as one of the brightest attorneys of his generation. But hidden behind the expensive suits, polished confidence, and carefully managed resume was a secret nobody knew. Marcus Wellington III was living one of the biggest frauds in modern legal history. Growing up in the wealthy community of Greenwich, Connecticut, Marcus Wellington III never questioned the future waiting for him. In his world, becoming a successful lawyer wasn't a dream. It was an expectation built into his family name, his grandfather. Judge Harrison Wellington Jr. had served for more than 2 decades as a respected federal judge after receiving his appointment during the Reagan administration. His father, Marcus Wellington Jr., became managing partner at one of Wall Street's most prestigious law firms, earning enormous fees through international corporate law and elite financial clients. From childhood, young Marcus was raised to believe legal success belonged naturally to men carrying the Wellington surname, but the illusion of effortless greatness began cracking the moment he entered Harvard Law School. For the first time in his life, Marcus discovered something deeply uncomfortable. Privilege and family connections could open doors, but they couldn't magically create brilliance. Despite every advantage money could buy, elite tutors, expensive preparation courses, and endless support from powerful family connections, Wellington struggled academically far more than anyone expected. He wasn't unintelligent. He understood legal theories well enough. But inside Harvard's intensely competitive environment, surrounded by genuinely gifted students, Marcus simply wasn't exceptional. His grades remained average. His classroom participation rarely stood out. And his chances of joining Harvard Law Review, the prestigious credential his family desperately expected him to earn, became almost impossible. That was the moment Marcus Wellington III made the decision that would shape his entire future. Instead of accepting his limitations honestly and building a legal career suited to his real abilities, he chose deception. Working secretly with a friend connected to the registrar's office, Wellington manipulated portions of his academic record. His grades were quietly adjusted just enough to improve his standing for law review consideration. But even that wasn't enough. So Marcus fabricated something far more dangerous, an entirely fake Harvard Law Review editorship. He created fictional references, invented publication records, and added accomplishments to his resume that never actually existed. And shockingly, nobody questioned it. The fraud succeeded because elite law firms rarely investigate candidates from powerful families too carefully. In prestigious legal circles, famous surnames often receive automatic trust. With his resume now artificially enhanced by fake credentials and inflated academic records, every professional door suddenly opened for Marcus Wellington. Cromwell, Sterling and Associates hired him immediately, impressed by both his family connections and the seemingly extraordinary Harvard achievements listed on paper. No one realized that much of his reputation existed only through deception. Once inside the firm, Wellington carefully built his career around avoiding situations that could expose his limitations. He specialized in corporate transactions that rarely entered courtrooms. His work focused on paperwork negotiations and technical research rather than actual litigation. Conference rooms became his safe zone. Courtrooms became places he quietly avoided. Marcus mastered the art of sounding intelligent during meetings while ensuring he never faced experienced judges or aggressive opposing attorneys capable of recognizing his weaknesses immediately. And for 12 years, the strategy worked perfectly. He generated millions in legal fees. He received promotions. His colleagues respected his polished theoretical knowledge. Clients trusted the Wellington family reputation. And no one ever seriously questioned whether the golden boy of elite legal culture truly deserved the success he enjoyed. But Marcus eventually made the same mistake many privileged frauds make. He started believing his own illusion. Years of success made him arrogant, reckless, and completely convinced of his own superiority. He became so comfortable hiding behind status and manufactured credentials that he genuinely believed he could dismiss or belittle anyone he considered beneath him, and that arrogance was about to collide with Judge Judy. What Marcus failed to understand was that Judge Judy wasn't simply a television personality. She was someone who had actually earned her reputation honestly through decades of real legal work. While Marcus Wellington spent his Harvard years manufacturing credentials, Judith Scheindlin was building hers the hard way inside Manhattan's family court system. The public knew her as Judge Judy, The sharp-tongued television judge, famous for blunt honesty and common-sense rulings. But inside New York's legal community, she carried a completely different reputation. Long before television fame, Judge Judy was considered one of the most respected and feared judges in Manhattan, born in Brooklyn to a working-class family. Judith Shainlin worked her way through law school while raising children and balancing part-time jobs. Her experiences dealing with ordinary people and real-life struggles taught her lessons no Ivy League education could replicate. After graduating, she briefly worked at a corporate law firm before realizing her true calling existed elsewhere. Family court, unlike corporate law, where wealthy businesses fought over contracts and money, family court involved real people facing emotional crises, broken relationships, inheritance wars, and deeply personal betrayals. Judge Judy spent 25 years handling more than 20,000 cases involving nearly every kind of family dispute imaginable. She presided over divorces involving massive fortunes, inheritance battles between powerful families, custody disputes tied to wealthy business empires, and legal conflicts so emotionally complicated they made Marcus Wellington's corporate paperwork seem simple by comparison. Her courtroom became the place New York's elite families feared entering whenever private disputes exploded publicly. But what truly made Judge Judy legendary wasn't simply her experience, it was her instincts. She possessed an almost supernatural ability to detect dishonesty. Throughout her judicial career, she exposed manipulative litigants, uncovered financial fraud hidden inside family trusts, and even referred dishonest attorneys for disciplinary investigations. Lawyers feared appearing before her because she prepared relentlessly and recognized deception faster than almost anyone else in the courtroom. So when Judge Judy agreed to consult on the Harrison Industries case, she approached it exactly as she approached every serious legal matter throughout her career. She investigated everything, not just the family dispute. The attorneys, too. And after 48 hours researching Marcus Wellington III, she uncovered a pattern of deception so shocking that even someone with decades of fraud experience found it disturbing. Judge Judy obtained evidence proving Marcus's Harvard Law Review credentials were fabricated. She discovered altered academic records. And most importantly, she identified billing practices, suggesting Wellington had charged clients millions for expertise he didn't actually possess. Even worse, she linked his incompetence to cases where clients suffered massive financial losses because they trusted someone who lacked the skills his resume claimed he had. Marcus Wellington III was about to face the one person in America holding both the evidence and credibility needed to destroy his entire career, and he had absolutely no idea what was coming. The video consultation began exactly the way Marcus Wellington III had planned. Judge Judy appeared calmly on the large conference screen, professional, composed, and fully prepared after reviewing every detail connected to the Harrison Industries dispute. Meanwhile, Wellington sat confidently inside the firm's massive marble column conference room. Surrounded by 3 nervous junior associates who viewed him as one of the brightest attorneys in the building, feeling completely in control, Marcus decided to establish dominance immediately. "Your Honor," Wellington began, his voice carrying obvious condescension. "While I appreciate Harrison Industries requesting your perspective, I think it's important we properly manage expectations here." He leaned back comfortably before continuing. "This is a highly complex, multi-jurisdictional corporate succession matter involving federal securities regulations, international trusts, and sophisticated fiduciary structures. It's very different from the neighborhood disputes you typically deal with." The room became noticeably tense. Judge Judy remained calm. "Mr. Wellington," she replied evenly, "I've practiced law since 1965. I've handled family business conflicts worth more money than many corporate transactions." But Wellington simply laughed dismissively. "I'm sure you've dealt with your share of family drama. "Judge Judy," he said smugly, "but situations like this require advanced understanding of corporate law and fiduciary obligations. These aren't issues solved through television-style common sense." The junior associates exchanged nervous looks as the atmosphere inside the room grew heavier. But Marcus wasn't finished. "Frankly," he continued, "I'm not entirely sure why we're consulting someone whose legal background is mostly small claims entertainment when this firm already employs Harvard-trained attorneys experienced in actual complex litigation." That was the moment everything changed. Judge Judy's eyes narrowed instantly. "Mr. Wellington," she said coldly, "I think you should be extremely careful about the assumptions you're making regarding my qualifications and your own." The confidence on Wellington's face slowly weakened for the first time. Then Judge Judy's tone turned ice cold. "Since you seem interested in discussing qualifications," she continued, lifting a folder into view through the video screen, "perhaps we should discuss what I discovered during my research on you." The room went completely silent. Wellington's expression froze. Judge Judy opened the folder calmly. "These," she said firmly, "are your actual Harvard Law School transcripts obtained legally through proper channels." The color immediately drained from Wellington's face. Judge Judy didn't slow down. "Your supposed Harvard Law Review editorship," she continued, "is completely fabricated." One associate looked down at the table in shock. "Your academic records were altered." Another associate shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "And your so-called expertise in securities law exists almost entirely in theory, because in 12 years of practice, you have never actually tried a single real case in court." The silence inside the conference room became unbearable. It felt as though everyone present was watching Marcus Wellington's career collapse in real time. But Judge Judy still wasn't finished. "I also reviewed billing records," she continued sharply, "showing you charged clients more than $2 million for legal work you were not qualified to perform." Then came the line that shattered everything. "That's called fraud, Mr. Wellington." The words landed like a bomb. Judge Judy leaned slightly forward toward the camera. "So before questioning my qualifications again," she said, "perhaps you should explain to your colleagues why Harvard has no official record of your law review position and why several former clients are currently considering malpractice lawsuits against you." Marcus Wellington III sat frozen, speechless, unable to defend himself, unable to explain. The carefully constructed image he spent years building was crumbling publicly in front of his own associates. His most valuable client, and one of the most respected judges in America. The arrogance disappeared instantly. For the first time in his professional life, Marcus looked terrified. Viewers watching the story unfold were urged to subscribe because the destruction was far from over, and what happened afterward shocked the entire legal world. Within only 2 hours of the consultation ending, Marcus Wellington III's career at Cromwell Sterling and Associates was officially over. The consultation had been recorded by Harrison Industries for internal documentation purposes. The moment the meeting ended, the recording was forwarded directly to the firm's managing partners. By 6 o'clock that evening, Marcus received an emergency summons to a private meeting. There, he was terminated immediately for cause. The firm cited fraudulent credentials, ethical violations, and potential client liability as grounds for firing him without severance. The fallout exploded across the legal community almost instantly. Once news leaked that Judge Judy exposed a Harvard credential fraud inside one of Manhattan's most prestigious law firms, legal media outlets erupted with coverage. Every major legal publication ran headlines about the scandal. Bar associations launched investigations. Former clients filed malpractice lawsuits. And elite law schools quietly began strengthening their credential verification procedures after realizing Marcus Wellington's fake resume had fooled top-tier firms for more than a decade. The scandal forced uncomfortable conversations throughout America's legal establishment. How many other golden boys were protected more by family connections than actual competence? How many prestigious firms relied more on elite surnames than genuine legal ability? And how had nobody uncovered Wellington's deception sooner? Judge Judy's role in exposing the fraud only elevated her reputation further. Already respected within legal circles, she now became legendary. The television judge capable of identifying legal fraud more effectively than partners educated at America's most elite universities. Meanwhile, Marcus Wellington disappeared almost overnight from the legal profession. His law license faced suspension pending investigation. His reputation became toxic. And the life he built entirely through deception collapsed faster than he ever imagined possible. Marcus Wellington III eventually learned the harshest lesson imaginable. Real expertise cannot be faked forever. No amount of expensive suits, Ivy League branding, family influence, or luxury conference rooms could protect someone once the truth finally surfaced. And in Wellington's case, the truth destroyed everything. Following his termination from Cromwell, Sterling and Associates, investigations into his background intensified rapidly. Legal regulators, bar associations, and former clients all began reviewing years of his work with fresh suspicion. What they discovered only made the scandal worse. The fraudulent Harvard Law Review credential wasn't simply an embarrassing lie added to a resume. It became evidence of a much larger pattern of deception stretching across his entire career. Investigators uncovered billing practices suggesting Wellington repeatedly charged enormous fees for legal services beyond his actual level of competence. Former clients started questioning settlements, transactions, and corporate strategies he previously handled. Several wealthy corporations quietly launched internal audits examining whether Wellington's mistakes had cost them millions of dollars over the years. For the elite legal world, the humiliation felt catastrophic. How could one of Manhattan's most prestigious firms fail to verify the credentials of someone they promoted for over a decade? How did a fabricated academic achievement survive inside institutions obsessed with prestige, reputation, and intellectual superiority? The answers exposed an uncomfortable reality. Elite legal culture often trusted privilege more than proof. Family names mattered more than careful investigation. Expensive education created assumptions of competence. And powerful institutions frequently protected people who looked successful instead of examining whether they truly deserved success. Marcus Wellington III became the perfect symbol of that broken system. His entire career had been built on image management, conference room confidence, luxury branding, elite social connections, and carefully rehearsed intelligence designed to impress people who rarely questioned appearances. But the moment he faced someone with real courtroom instincts and decades of practical legal experience, the illusion collapsed instantly. That person was Judge Judy. Her consultation with Harrison Industries ultimately proved far more valuable than anyone inside Cromwell Sterling originally expected. Using her understanding of family dynamics, trust disputes, and emotionally driven power struggles, Judge Judy helped guide the Harrison family toward a legal strategy that protected the company while avoiding criminal prosecution entirely. Richard Harrison's instincts about her turned out to be completely correct. She understood people better than the elite attorneys surrounding him. And in complicated family business disputes, understanding people often matters more than understanding paperwork. Inside the legal community, Judge Judy's reputation reached an entirely new level after the scandal. She was no longer viewed merely as a successful television personality. She became the judge who exposed legal fraud hidden inside one of America's most prestigious law firms. The judge capable of detecting deception faster than attorneys educated at Harvard. The judge who reminded the legal establishment that courtroom wisdom cannot be replaced by expensive credentials or manufactured prestige. Meanwhile, Marcus Wellington vanished almost completely from public legal life. His professional reputation became permanently destroyed. Friends inside elite legal circles distanced themselves immediately. Former colleagues stopped returning calls. And the powerful connections that once protected him disappeared the moment his usefulness ended. For years, Wellington believed success meant convincing people he belonged among America's legal elite. But in the end, he discovered something painfully simple. Respect earned through deception eventually collapses under scrutiny. The story also forced broader conversations across law schools, corporate firms, and judicial conferences nationwide. Credential verification processes became stricter, real investigations became deeper. And many firms quietly reevaluated how much importance they placed on family reputation versus actual legal ability. Because Marcus Wellington III proved that even America's most prestigious institutions could be fooled when arrogance, privilege, and status replaced accountability. But perhaps the most important lesson came from Judge Judy herself. Throughout the confrontation, she never relied on intimidation, social status, or corporate influence. She relied on preparation, experience, evidence, and decades of honestly earned credibility. That became the true difference between her and Marcus Wellington. One built a reputation through years of real courtroom battles. The other built his through carefully manufactured appearances. And when those two worlds finally collided, only one survived. The message from the entire story became impossible to ignore. In law, just like in life, your value is not determined by where you studied, how much money you charge, or how impressive your office looks. Your value is determined by integrity, by genuine knowledge, and by whether your reputation can survive real scrutiny when the spotlight finally turns toward you, because pretending to be successful may fool people temporarily. But eventually, everyone faces someone capable of exposing the truth. And when you challenge someone who spent decades honestly earning respect, you better make sure your own credentials can survive examination first. Viewers were encouraged to subscribe and share the story with anyone who still believed fake it until you make it works forever. Because Marcus Wellington III became proof that deception may build careers temporarily, but truth destroys them permanently. And Judge Judy's devastating takedown became one of the most unforgettable legal exposures modern courtroom storytelling had ever seen.